Welcome to the Next Level Faith podcast. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, best-selling author and life coach for ambitious women of faith. Join me each week to learn more about the strategies, tools, and mindset needed to arise from the overwhelm and create a joyful life you love. To learn how you can work with me further, grab your copy of my best-selling book, Arise and Shine, or check out how you can get your ticket to my next Awake conference or retreat, head over to juliannekirkland.com. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, because the best version of you begins on your next level of faith. On today's episode, hear from Liz Wiseman. Liz is a New York Times best-selling author of Multipliers. She is the CEO of Wiseman Group, a leadership research and development firm headquartered in Silicon Valley, California. She's conducted significant research in the field of leadership and collective intelligence, and writes for the Harvard Business Review, Fortune, and a variety of other businesses on leadership journals. She is a frequent guest lecturer at BYU and Stanford University, and is a former executive at Oracle Corporation, where she worked as the vice president of Oracle University and as the global leader of human resources development. Welcome, Liz. Hey, welcome back to the Next Level Faith podcast. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I am so excited to introduce you to Liz. Welcome, Liz.
Hey, good to be here. Nice talking to you again.
Yeah, again, I'm so glad you're here. So I actually interviewed Liz for a fireside chat with the Women Leaders Association, I guess a little over a month ago. And it was just such a great conversation. You know, there's some of those people that you just naturally kind of click with. And Liz was definitely one of those people. She's so gracious and kind. And it's just an honor to be in your presence. So I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, well, good to be one of your clickies. I love that. This is a new term. People you click with.
I love it. So Liz, we're dying to know, you know, in the world's view, you are the epitome of a successful woman. You have come through the ranks and, you know, you have written New York Times best-selling books. You have the Multipliers, Rookie Smarts, Impact Players, like these incredible books that are really helping maximize organizations, right? And like how to maximize their intelligence and really use people in the right way and all of this. And I would love to know what your faith journey has been like through this whole process.
Ooh. Well,
let me clear my throat.
Yeah, I know. Like, okay, let's get started. You know, my faith and my work are interwoven, and it's really hard to separate. And, you know, I think early on in my career, I don't know if I made a conscious decision, but I just have never hid my faith. I think my faith journey and my professional life are intertwined because, one, I've always felt guided in my work.
Yeah.
And I've always been open with my faith. Oh boy, there's a scripture in James. Now, I wish I knew exactly what it was, but it's like, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And I've tried to live my professional life this way. And, you know, I live in Northern California where people joke that it's illegal to be Christian. and and I just have never wanted to hide that. And I've always wanted to be really open with my faith. And I had this maybe a slightly formative experience in high school where it was like a social studies class. We would never do this in today's world, where the teacher was rattling off the names of different world religions. And, you know, I was kind of waiting for my denomination to be called. It was never called. And the teacher said Christian, and I didn't raise my hand. And all my friends turned and looked at me like, what is wrong with you? It's like, you're a Christian. And I was like, oh, I was kind of like waiting for go through like the denominations of Christians. And I remember feeling ashamed that I did not say that I am a person of faith and I believe. And And I don't know, I think I often harken back to this moment of what it felt like to, in some ways, deny my religion. I wasn't trying to hold back. I was just, but it felt that way to my friends, like, we know you're a person of faith. And so I think I have just let my faith and my professional life be like openly intertwined.
Yeah.
And I found that being a person of faith, while I know it's in some ways looked down on in the work that I do, I have always felt that it has been an advantage to me.
Yeah. And so talk about that. Like, what are some of the ways that, or some of the instances where you felt like you were entering a situation? I know when I wrote my first book and, I sent it off to the editor for the first time and I'm like, oh, here we go. Right. Because there is, especially in today's world, it's like everyone is looking for something to be offended over, and it's like, did you have that kind of pause? Or were you just like, you know what, we're just going out there, or did you kind of downplay it some to slide into the more broad sense of view? Like, what was that journey like for you?
Well, I think maybe I'll use a word that's a little bit loaded, and I don't mean this in a loaded way, but I have always tried to be firm in my faith and happy to talk about my faith, but never evangelical about my faith to the point where it was judging somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's the place that I've tried to occupy, which is being really comfortable and being very willing to share, but not insistent.
Yeah.
Because I've always worked in very multicultural, multi-faith kinds of environment. And, you know, I, I think if you want people to be open to your belief system, you have to be really open to other people's belief system and embrace that, whether it's agnosticism or atheism, or like to embrace that with the same degree of curiosity and interest
Yeah.
and appreciation that you would want someone to approach your faith with.
Yeah.
I think that's the posture that I've tried to hold. But I feel like maybe being just comfortable. Here's the thing that I've noticed is the more that you're comfortable with what makes you different,
Mm.
the more other people are comfortable with it. And in many ways, the more it becomes a source of power. And let me maybe try to explain that on two fronts. One, I think I was always, and I got lucky. I got so lucky. I landed early in my career in this company called Oracle, which was this kind of medium sized but rapidly growing software company. Today, they're a behemoth in the industry. And in some ways, it was just a wonderful meritocracy. It didn't matter if you're male or female or Christian or Jewish or young or older.
Wow.
It was just what you could do that mattered. And I think it helped me be really comfortable with who I was, which was a woman in a very male dominated world,
Yeah.
someone who was Christian and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in a company that was, a lot of the leaders were Jewish. But I just always felt like it was okay to be me. And I think early on I embraced like being a mom.
Mm.
And this was back before there was, sort of an abundance of working moms. And I just decided that I would be really okay with that and not try to pretend that that wasn't important to me.
Yeah.
And I even remember coming back from my very first maternity leave and, telling my boss, who was the head of HR for this company, I'm like, Phil, I've always solved all my problems by working harder. And now I have this young child and I can't just work more. So I've got to like figure out how to really work smart.
Yeah.
And I told him, like, and most people probably wouldn't tell their boss this. At least, I don't know, back then, this was 28 years ago. I'm like, Phil, my family is really important to me. And my faith informs like why my family is really important to me. I feel like being a mother is like a God a godly mission and a partnership with God, and like raising one of his children. And I told Phil, I'm like, if my work and my home ever come into conflict, my home is going to win. Like, my family is more important to me than my job. And I'm thinking, did you just say that? Should you actually be acting like, did I just tell my boss my job's not that important to me? Like, maybe I should be pretending like I've got it all. Like, no, I don't have a kid. There's nothing, there's nothing pulling me in a different direction. And I just was really open with him. I'm like, my family's going to win if these ever come into conflict. And his response was, well, let's keep him out of conflict.
That's great.
And it wasn't just because he's this wonderful guy. He happens to be a really amazing guy, but he was like, I really want you to keep working. Like, we need you and we want you. And so he became this ambassador, like trying to keep these worlds out of conflict for me. Now, he didn't remove all conflict, but he helped me do that. And he helped make, some decisions. And so like that helped me just be really open. And when I was pregnant, I was like really open. And I remember like moments where, I would just joke about me being pregnant and my kids. And it turned out to be a source of power for me. And I remember this one meeting with Oracle's executive committee, and I have just returned back from maternity leave. I am a nursing mom. I'm pumping, I'm in that whole world, and I'm running this meeting with Oracle's management committee, and I need to take a break and go and pump, breast milk. And I'm like, okay, guys, I think we should take a break. And they're like, no, you know what? We're kind of on a roll. Let's keep going. And I'm like, what do I do? And then I just remember saying, no, actually, the lactating mother will decide when we take a break. And she has decided we take a break right now. And they're like, we're taking a break. And I just remember feeling how empowered I felt by just owning no, I have other things. And, I remember once the president of the company said, Liz, we want you to lead this effort. And we, wanted me to film this whole video and be like the spokesperson for this major initiative in the company. And I'm like, why me? Like, no, let's get a professional to go in and do this. He goes, no, because Liz, people trust you. You're like a Mormon mom of 4, people just trust you. And it was one of these moments where my faith turned out to be like a source of credibility. He's like, no, people trust you because you're of faith and a mom. It's not. And I think it was a whole bunch of experiences like that made me feel okay.
Yeah.
To just integrate my professional life and my faith life and my family life.
Yeah. And I think that is part of, as I see it, this identity crisis that's kind of happening in our world, where we keep looking to society to figure out who we are, when really the answer is already within us. And it is that integration of all the parts of who we are, to be able to fully express that, looking as an outsider, looking at your career and the story you just told. I'm like, to me, it looks like so much of your success has come from you fully embodying all of those powers of who you are, in every part of your life, and just standing firm in that. And I think so many women, especially, are kind of afraid to do that. We are seeing it more now, but there is that, kind of like I said earlier, that fear of, oh, I'm going to offend, right? If I say this wrong thing and this wrong thing. But to your point of, if you do it in a way that's still true and authentic to you, and also gracious to other people. And I think that's the part that society gets wrong, is that it doesn't have to be an either or. It can be in both and. You can stand up for what you believe in and still be gracious to other people.
And be totally open to other people's faith and experience. And, I really think there's nothing more powerful than someone who's just comfortable in their own skin and with their own situation. And it gives us this power. And I think the other thing that my faith has helped me is is to remain detached
Mm.
from what's happening in the workplace. And when I say detached, I mean it in like the way my Buddhist friends talk about being detached from something, being able to
Yeah.
sort of hold something close and far at the same time. And I remember this one conversation. This is again back to my days at Oracle, when I'm like, oh, I'm eye rolling with a friend about why people are being so, kind of dumb about this and political and all this kind of infighting. And he's like, Liz, you don't get it. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you don't understand. And the reason why you don't understand is because of your faith. He's like, you have like this whole identity outside of work.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that. Like for them, work is their identity.
So true.
And for me, my identity is like, oh no, I'm not like a professional who sometimes like has spiritual, like I am a spiritual being having
Right.
this mortal experience. I have a relationship with God. I am a daughter of God. Like that, this isn't like a means to an end. Like work isn't my end. And I think because of that, like I have this context that I think people of faith have as we look at our day-to-day experiences that tell us where it fits it. Like you are here and there's this larger map
Yeah.
of what's happening. And I think because of that, I've been able to step back and look at things and kind of go, this thing that seems so important right now is really not important. Like whether someone's a senior director or a director, and whether they have 12 people working for them or 32 people. And like, this is really not important.
Yeah.
It plays a role, but it's not what really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's helped me to be able to step back and look at, I studied leadership and good management. And so I think it's helped me see it for what it is, but also understand like the importance of leadership and what leaders do to help people have rich experiences and soulful experiences and mental and physical and spiritual well-being.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good because we are so multifaceted. And I love, that viewpoint of just being able to step back and see it for really what it is, because I do think so many people get caught up in the labels. They're working for this next title, and which is, it's great to work for things and to try and advance in things, but to again make that your identity, you're missing so much more in life.
Yeah. And I think being able to separate self and work not only makes us healthier in life and like we don't get distracted, we don't serve like God and mammon at the same time, like, but it helps our work be better. And, I remember I had this moment where I think this like really came into focus with me. And I had just written my first book. It was the book Multipliers. It went on to be a New York Times bestseller. And I had been asking one of my former bosses, Carrie Patterson, who had written Crucial Conversations. He had written 4 New York Times bestselling books. And, I told him about my idea early on, and he was like, Liz, don't be stupid. Don't, because he knew what I was going to go do. He's like, this is a really important idea. It's a big idea. And he's like, you go write a big book. Don't do a stupid first time author thing and write a small book in hopes that, your friends and family and if maybe 10,000 people read it. He's like, you go write a big, important book with this. And he became this advisor to me. And he offered to give me some coaching and feedback in this process. And he's an amazing thinker, amazing writer. He passed just this last year. And so he asked me if he could offer some feedback on the book. And so I sent him the first couple chapters. I emailed him the files and he calls me back like 45 minutes later. And I'm like, wow, can't believe it. And he's like, Liz, I don't even know he said Liz, because here's what I remember. He's like, girl, have you done your homework? And I'm like, oh, yay. And then he's like, and girl, can you write in my life longer than an email note. So I'm feeling so good about this. And Carrie, who's my hero and brilliant and an amazing writer, thinks I'm a good writer. And then he's like, okay, I don't have time to go through everything with you right now, but you know what? Like, schedule some time with me. Let's go through this. And so I scheduled 2 hours at his office. I fly 2 states away to go meet with him. And I show up at his office. And, he had asked me to send some files over, some additional chapters. I did. He was going to read it and give me feedback. Well, he hadn't had time to read it. And so he's like, I'll just read it live. And so he's now reading the chapters I wrote while I'm sitting across the table from him. Now, I have a hard time letting anyone read what I write because then it's so personal and
Yeah.
and then to have him do it live and like, oh, it was just awful. And so he starts dramatically reading this and he like reads a couple sentences and he's like, ugh. And then he's like shaking his head and he's like, I don't agree with that. That's not even true. Oh, that's awful. And he's ripping me apart. Julianne, this goes on for 90 minutes. He just reads stuff and then he reacts. Oh, okay, that's terrible. That's this is this. And he's just nothing positive. It's just shredding it. And we get to the end of it and he's really intense. So he's like looking down and going through all this. And he kind of looks up at the end. And he said to me, like he's looking for signs that what he had just done had been helpful. And I'm like, Carrie, that was so painful. It was so painful. I said, the only thing that would have made that worse is if I had also been naked and standing on the table while you did that. I'm like, that was horrible. And he just laughs and laughs. And we share a good laugh over this. He had been a very dear mentor of mine. We just thought that was funny. And then he's like, Liz, yes, I'm giving you my toughest feedback because I think your work deserves it. And I think you can handle it.
Wow.
And this was a really powerful teaching moment for me because I went there honestly seeking praise. Like
Wow.
girl, have you done
Yeah.
girl, can you write? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go spend a couple hours with Carrie where he's going to tell me
How amazing.
how amazing I am. Like, this is going to be so much fun. I went for a second helping of praise.
Yeah.
I figured he'd throw in some pointers like, okay, you could sharpen up this
Sure.
and da, da, da. But what I realized as I walked out of there, I'm like, no, what he gave me was like, he made my work better.
Mm-hmm.
And I furiously took notes while he's doing this. And I'm like, wow, this actually makes the book much better. And I'm going to take it and apply it to not just what he read, but I'm going to apply those principles across this. And it was this moment where I had this chance to separate myself from my work. Like, he wasn't attacking me.
Yeah.
And he also wasn't praising me.
Yeah.
What he was doing is seeing promise and seeing problems in my work. And when I separated myself and my ego from my work, then I could actually make the work better. And I think our faith helps us do this. Like, we are not our work, even if we pour ourselves into our work, even if we're passionate about our work. Like, we can be a good person and do bad work.
True.
Or we can do great work and kind of,
Got
I
some
don't want
things.
to be a bad person, but like, have some things that we need to be working on. And when we see ourselves not as writers or programmers or salespeople or designers, and we see ourselves as souls, in need of growth, in need of redemption, in need of love, and capable of giving, like love, all of these things, then we can have good days at work and bad days at work. We can have we can write a good article and we can write kind of a weak article.
Mm-hmm. That's so
my
good.
faith has really helped me to do that.
Yeah. And so what have you done, since that time with your family, and how have you applied those lessons within your family as well?
And Well, I think having a strong relationship with God, I think, makes you a better parent,
Mm.
because if you try to get your satisfaction from the validation from your children that you're doing a
This
good
is so
job,
good. This is so good. Yeah. Such a good
parenting is
conversation.
awful.
Yes.
Yeah, I sometimes I say to my kids, I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry I have to sit down and talk with you this, but I am obligated to God to do this." Like, I have, like, in some ways taken an oath. I don't know, there was
Yeah.
never an oath, but I feel
Right.
like I I've made a promise to God that I would, like, teach you certain things and help you, like, and then you have to choose for yourself if you believe and what you believe, like,
Yeah.
that's all for you to decide, but, like, I have to do my part, which is
Yes.
teach you right and wrong, and, like, I've kinda made a promise to God that I'm gonna do that, and so, sorry, but I have to kinda talk to you about this,
Right.
and I have
Let's
to,
have a conversation.
let's have this conversation, like, that's part of my deal, and then you have the agency to decide what to do with that, but I've had to say, like, "Sorry, no," like, my relationship with God requires me to say no on that, or to, have this conversation, or it's also helped me to not need to be popular with my children
Yeah.
at times, like, I can't tell you how many times I've said to my kids, I'm like, "Well, it's a good thing mom was popular in high school." I'm like, "Can I talk about how popular I was in high school? I was a cheerleader. I was, like, student body, blah, blah, like, I was super popular." And they're like, "Mom, what are you talking about?" And I'm like, "I was popular then, and that's important because I'm over it. Like, I have no need to
I
be
don't have to be
popular
popular
and
now.
need satisfied."
Great.
Jack was popular. I'm like, "So I don't feel like I need to be popular right now. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to win a popularity contest as your mom. I'm trying to do the right thing."
Mm.
And
Yeah.
again, like, faith has helped me, like, in some ways, like, my role as mother is so intertwined with my relationship with God and my faith and my relationship with my Savior. But in some ways, like, it is that relationship that helps me separate and be a little bit detached.
Mhm. It's good.
Like, again, in that, like, wonderful Buddhist sense of,
Right.
like, being detached from outcome,
Mhm. Yeah.
of, like, it is not my place to control you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm obligated to teach, but you're gonna make choices, and, like, your choices don't necessarily reflect on me for bad or for good.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so true. And, as you were saying that, to detach from the outcome, so I coach a lot of ambitious women of faith who are entrepreneurs and starting out in that journey. And, the traditional marketing stream for entrepreneurs is sell the outcome, sell the outcome, sell the outcome, right? And it makes logistical sense. And I'm always like, God's word says surrender the outcome, and
Mm.
so it's very much what you're saying. It's like we do our part, he does his part, and then we just let it be after that. And I love that there is that grace and um the ability to lead yourself in that way has helped you to lead so many others in the way that they in turn lead and become multipliers and all of this, and at the same time in your family as well.
Oh, but, like, just hearing you say that, Julianne, like, makes me, like, I feel, like, a little bit of stress well up, because it's hard for me to separate from outcome, and, you know, there have been moments, like, they've been hard moments, and I remember one came with my first book, Multipliers, and I worked so hard. I got beat up by Carrie Patterson. I'm working so hard on this, and, some of my friends said, "Oh, you know what? Like, you're working too hard on
Mm.
this." And I'm like, "No, I feel like I'm supposed to do this." And I'm, like, trying to push to get certain articles and certain journals, and I had this very powerful spiritual moment. For me, it was a moment of revelation where, like,
Huh.
God speaks, his will to you. And I felt this overwhelming sense of kind of like the Lord saying, good job. So the
Mm.
book had been released, and it had some initial success. And so I felt like, okay, now I've got to kind of keep the momentum up with this.
Right.
And I need to do all these things. And I felt this incredible sense of validation that I had done a good work and that the Lord was pleased
Yeah.
with my work and my efforts. And of course, that felt so amazing. And then I felt like in that same moment, like almost in the same breath, I felt this very clear message of, and you can let go.
Wow.
And like, I'll take it from here.
Mm.
And I got this, and it was very unnerving for me because I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I'm used to pushing and
Right.
making things happen and doing my part. And I got this sense of like, no, your part is done.
Wow.
And if there's somebody who needs to hear this message, like, I'll make that happen. Like,
Yeah.
Liz, you don't need to worry about that. I'm worrying about that. Or, and it's kind of even hard to explain, but I felt involved, but released from having to worry about outcomes. Just like,
Yeah.
let it be.
Yeah.
And what will happen and what needs to happen, and the ears who need to hear it will hear it. And it felt terrible and wonderful.
Right.
But since that time,
That's
I'm
the
like, I
truth.
don't
That's
need
the
to.
reality of it.
Yeah, it's like you said, I'm just going to put things in the Lord's hands. And you know what? Those hands are stronger. Like that, I'll do my part, but I don't have to drive and push and worry. And I've had similar moments with my kids where I want to push. I
Yeah.
want a certain thing to happen. And then I'm like, no,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not my place. I'll just need to sit and wait.
Yep. Oh, that's so true. I was having a similar conversation with a mom, and our sons swim together. And she has two boys that kind of sandwich my son. So it's 13, my son's 12, and then her other son is 11. And so they're all in like the same swimming year-round group together. And the younger one is just that like driven, wants to be the best, like has that internal motivation, and the older one's kind of like, and so they have this kind of battle in their family because the older one wants to still be the best one because he's older, right? But the
Right.
young one is really coming up and just kind of taking over and just developing so much because that drive is just there. He practices hard. He wants to succeed. And the mom's like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I'm like, you do what you can. Like you do your part. You steward that 13-year-old in the way that he should be stewarded. And then you steward that 11-year-old in the way that he should be stewarded. They're different. They're different.
They're different. And I think, I've got a bit of a large brood, maybe on today's standard. I have 4 kids.
I have 6.
Okay. So we're both dealing with like the law of large numbers in some ways. And when you have 6 kids, you realize, wow, they're really different.
Totally.
And they might share a set of genetics and a similar environment, but they come with their souls kind of full.
Yep.
And they're not yours. And of course, that makes me think of the Khalil Gibran poem, the Prophet, which talks about your children aren't yours. They come through you, not from
Right.
you.
Right.
And you learn that each one of them is this like unique being with unique spiritual gifts and unique capabilities and needs, and that there is no one size fits all parenting model.
Yeah.
And I remember once I got kind of ripped by my our second child, our second daughter, because she saw like how we were handling and treating our our youngest was different than how but like they were such different. I'm like, oh my gosh. She's like, you never,
Right.
I'm like, well, one, we've learned a few things, but like she needed something kind of much different. And I was trying to explain, like, Amanda, each one of our kids, they're all different and they need something different from us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, she'll understand when she has kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's how God treats each of us. It's like,
Yes.
we each, sometimes we need a kick in the pants and sometimes, we just need love. And
yeah. And that goes back to, your original point of holding that space of grace and compassion and curiosity and willingness to just have those nuanced conversations with other people, because, believing that we're all God's children and he has that same way, like, I got to deal with this one a little bit differently. And it's not your job, to be the one that's judging and holding contention and all of that. Like, that's not our job. Our job is to be the ones that gather and to, share our story and what it means to us. And then from there, let him take it from there. It's just like your book. Good job. I'll take it from here.
I know. And it was just awful, but an incredible blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. Liz, thank you so much for your time.
I got fired from my own project. How bad is that?
Oh, man. But look at what's come out of it. You know what I mean? Like, you were such an incredible and inspiring woman. And I'm so grateful that I've gotten to speak with you now twice. So thank you.
The work has had impact and the work has traveled where it needed to travel. And maybe some of that is because I did my part, but a lot of that is just beyond me. And it's all the people like yourself who have the ideas have resonated, to have taken that and shared that. And it has traveled through many people.
Yeah. That's awesome. And that's the beauty of connection and, community. And that's our part in it, is to share all this goodness that we've encountered with other people. There's enough people sharing all the badness and the crap that's going on. So I'm all for sharing the good stuff.
I know. I just keep thinking of that little song, like, this little light of mine, or like, Jesus wants me for a sunbeam. Like, we need people who are willing to sort of be a light to the world right now.
Yes, absolutely. My motto is shine, girl, shine.
Shine.
I'm all about it.
Yeah. And just keep loving people, even who seem like they've lost their mind.
Yeah. Which is, a lot of people. I have 6 kids. I feel like I do it on the regular. So I'm really compassionate to others when it comes to that.
Oh, yeah. I was not born with patience, but being a mom, my children have taught me patience.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I really changed.
Yeah.
Because of it. But it was a forced change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like that spiritual maturity, you're not going to give them a steak. Not ready for it yet. It's that forced maturity that comes with it. I love it. Liz, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Oh, well, thank you. What a joy to talk with you.
Yes. All right, my friends, that's all I have for us today. Be sure to connect with Liz. I will link all of her links in the show notes below. Be sure to pick up her book, Multipliers. It's an incredible story. And remember, the best version of you begins on your next level of faith. Bye for now.